Thank you all. It's great to be with you. And Stephen, thank you so much. I got to tell you, when this last battle over immigration started, I was worried. Some of the voices that had been supportive of us in 2006 and 7 were kind of silent in this thing. And if it hadn't been for the new media, and no media better than Breitbart, but a lot of others too, and people like National Review and Weekly Standard and Daily Caller and Daily Caller, whatever, and just group after group, and the intellectuals of the conservative movement, you need to know, do not stand with the inside vision of some of the folks that seem to speak for us. So both the grassroots and the American people are, I think, concerned about this. Let me just say this. Right now, there are two conferences, one of them in public. Candidates are out there having to speak, defend, answer questions on their views and on their positions on important issues facing America. Many people at this conference here and watching it from abroad are evaluating them, judging them, asking themselves whether or not their visions, their ideas, their character will be used to advance the interests of the American people and this republic. And that's the way it ought to be. Amen. However, others are meeting. I just saw one in Washington Times, another one of those great organs of freedom. This was in a few days ago. The National Finance Chairman for the Mitt Romney 2012 presidential campaign on Tuesday praised Jeb Bush's stance on immigration, saying the party should consider following his lead if it hopes to win back the White House. Spencer Vick, one of the more sought-after GOP free agents, that's a fundraiser, said the donor community is going to get behind candidates that, like Mr. Bush, actively embraced immigration reform. And you know what that means. It goes on to say, quote, if someone, this is what I want you to hear, if someone wants to be serious about running for president, they need to be in a similar place, close quote. Well, it came from during a conference, one of these conferences you were invited to, I suppose. A conference called the GOP Donors, organized by the Partnership for New American Economy. Goes on here, and others on the conference call Tuesday said that any Republican who wants to be taken seriously by major GOP donors in the nomination race must clearly spell out where they are on this issue. If we're going to win this election, you are going to have to change your position on immigration reform if you are opposed to it, said Andrew Husda, CEO of CKE Restaurants and advisor to Mr. Romney's 2012 campaign. I don't know if this is whatever his name is there. But I'll tell you one thing, it's the people of this country that run this country, and contributions and supporters are always important in presidential elections and other elections too, but votes trumps money. Amen.
Yes, yes, yes.
Trump money.
Here.
The national interest properly articulated by good candidates, expressed with conviction and professionalism, can carry the day, and will carry the day with regard to the future of this republic. Well, they got their money. They think they're entitled to having their way. But you have a vote, and it is every bit as valuable as their vote. And you've got relatives and friends and families, and we've got working people over this country that are concerned about this republic, and I think are very ready to abandon this leftist, statist, amnesty, open borders policy that threatens their jobs, wages, and future of themselves and their children. I think people are worried about it.
That's right. That's right.
So, I'm going to tell you how we're going to win this election. Okay. Right? This presidential election. The money guys think they got all that counts, but they don't. Look, first, who is a fundamental question, friends? Who is our constituency? Who does a politician take an oath to represent? Well, I'm a lawyer. I know what a trust is. I know what a corporation is. I know what a duty of a CEO is. It's to represent its stockholders. Well, for politicians, our duty is to represent the people,
That's right.
the citizens of this country. That's first and foremost. And we are not, as National Review said, an economy with a nation. We are a nation with an economy. Right. People aren't commodities. We owe them. They place their lives at stake for the future of our country. We send them into war and they say yes sir and no sir. They put their lives at risk. They follow the law. They teach their children to follow the law. And that is not a commodity. Amen. And a government owes them a reciprocal duty.
Amen.
It owes them a responsible commitment to their safety, their economic future, and for the integrity of their legal system and the heritage George Washington that y'all have given us. And I feel real strongly about it. Somehow we're in this la-la land.
Yes.
Like we don't even know who we represent.
That's right.
So I think that's important. Well, I'll never forget one of the greatest speeches that I've ever heard. Some of you may have known Eddie Nye. Know Eddie Nye. He came to Mobile right about 81, and nobody showed up at the meeting. He was supposed to tell Republicans how to win elections, so he just said, I want you to listen to this speech. He played Newt Gingrich's speech. And Newt, cutting it short, laid out the most brilliant analysis of politics I've ever heard. And he said basically that a party that wants to govern, and that's what it's all about, is governing. If you want to be able to govern the country, you've got to win elections. And to win elections, you should have a message that's appealing to more than a few people. You should be consistently appealing to 75% or more of the American people. And there's some that represent the opposition. And he said you ought to be hard on them. Talked about Andrew Jackson going after the Easterners and Franklin Roosevelt trashing the steel CEOs and big business types. And he said that our symbol in that 1980 was Tip O'Neill, big fat politician who'd sell out his mama to get a vote.
That's right.
And that's almost still where we are. People that are just used to the establishment, used to contributions, used to special interests, and used to winning elections. And those are not the people in the long run that are good for America. So he said that, and I think that's true. So where do we go about this? Governor Romney, when he ran, how did we lose that election? In the primary, I distinctly remember him being in a debate, Republican primary. And we were debating, and I had decided that we need to do more to defend the American worker on the world stage. That we were getting cheated by our trading partners, and we've got to demand that our trading partners be more fair and honest with us, and we just can't keep following this idea that we can have free trade agreements and we comply and our partners don't. Yeah. And so I supported the currency bill. So Romney had a debate about that same time. And he said, if you don't stand up to China, they'll run over you. They say if we stand up to China, talking about the Wall Street Journal, I suspect, we'll create a trade war. But he said, we're in a trade war, we're just not fighting. And then he explained how China, who's selling us all these products, and I'm not picking on China particularly, but they're one of the worst currency manipulators in the world. China, who sells to us, is much more vulnerable than we are. We can buy widgets from other places. We might even make them ourselves. They're the ones that are at threat here. And he just basically said we ought to stand up to them. Now, did he say that in November when the general election came along? He also took a tough position on immigration. Some say it was too tough. Maybe it was a little insensitively expressed. Didn't represent a full understanding, but it was a strong position for a lawful system of immigration. Did he express that in November? No. So I would say to you, in my view, the American people want and rightly believe that their government should defend their economic interest on the world stage effectively, with passion and determination. And that is an obligation we have as representatives of the people to do so. And with regard to the question of immigration, the American people are good and decent. We have the most generous immigration system in the world. We admit 1 million people lawfully on the path to citizenship. We have a couple of 100,000 plus guest workers and others that come and we have 11 million people here unlawful. But the American people's view is right and good and decent. It says they have pleaded for this, they've demanded this, Congress has promised this and never delivered it. They've asked for a lawful system of immigration, one that serves the national interest, one that we can be proud of. Now, a person applies to come to our country, and they're accepted or not accepted. If they're not accepted, they don't get to come illegally. And we need to say that with clarity and consistency, and if we did that, we would have a much, much better system. They want a system that serves their interest. I think it was Dr. Borhoff, somebody in one of our hearings in 2007, Senators, if you want to know about immigration, tell me what you want. If you want something that serves the national interest, let me know. I can help you do that. If you want to serve the interest of poor people worldwide, I can tell you how to do that. Let them come to America. So you have to ask yourself, what is the rational policy? And try to enforce it and have a system we can be proud of. I just would say to you, we're on a road where the average American person feels forgotten. You know, Romney didn't lose that election by much, and he would have been a great president in many ways. I believe he would have run this country well, he would have managed it well. We wouldn't have all this legal machinations, and we'd have great judges around the country. But and he ran a pretty close race. He lost what? How many points? Was it 3 or 4? 2 or 3? What happened? The $30,000 to $50,000 a year income voter voted against Romney by 15 points. The under $30,000 a year voter voted against Romney 28 points. He lost those by 28 points. This is, as Newt Gingrich said, Romney said, the 47%. That was too true, wasn't it? You can't win an election with 47%, can you? No. I don't think so. So I would just say to you, we're on a path to, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to appeal directly to the American people with some fundamental issues. I just want to show you one of these polls. Kellyanne Conway, this is her poll. You know Kellyanne, you've seen her on television. A good pollster. She came to me in August and said, Jeff, I've had a conversion experience. I want to talk to you. What you're saying about immigration is stunning how it polls. Here's one. This was in August of last year. If businesses have trouble finding workers, what should happen? Should they raise wages and improve working conditions to attract Americans? 75% say yes. More immigrant workers should be allowed into the countries to fill these jobs. 8. 75% to 8. This is our Republican candidates aren't talking about this. Right. Among women, Republicans lose the women vote. Should they raise wages and improve conditions? 78% to 8. How about African Americans? 86 to 3. How about Hispanics? 71 to 11. Now I'm telling you, American people are pleading for their country to do something about their problem for a change. Wages are down. We're down nearly $4,000 median income since 2007. How much money is that? This is a catastrophe that middle-class Americans have a $4,000 decline in their wages. It's unbelievable. We have the lowest percentage of workers, Americans working today, participating in the labor force since 1975. This is a steady erosion of the working Americans, the decent people who made this country great, who we owe our responsibility to. Their conditions have eroded. And we need to ask ourselves what's happening. And we need a presidential candidate who talks to them and gets off these phone calls with donors with big bucks. My view. I'm just telling you. I've been a Republican since high school. Phyllis Schlafly, you know. I read A Choice, Not an Echo. And I had forgotten, I think it was the Washington Times recently, said a big part of her book was a call to the Republican people to rally against big business domination of their party. This needs to be a party for the working American.
Amen.
This is the party. Said, look, I think you guys, she talked to the Republicans one time, she said, look, I think you guys have given enough love to the entrepreneurs, you need to talk to the working guy for a change. Most people are not ever going to be an entrepreneur. They know they're not going to be running a business. They just would like to have a decent job, with a decent pay, with a decent health care, and a retirement plan. And that's not impossible. And that ought to be the clear commitment of whoever we move forward with in this republic. Stephen, thank you for letting me be here.
I have a question. So what specific policies could we emphasize to speak to the lower income people that you mentioned?
Well, Professor Borjas studied, he's at Harvard, and the premier thinker on all these issues. He showed that from 80 to 2000, in one of his big reports of data, Labor Department data, official government data, that wages had declined significantly, particularly for lower people. As a result, he identified immigration as a direct factor in that. So I think that's a message. I think the American people have long, working people, have long been dubious about trade agreements. I think we ought to say we hear you. Now, we believe in trade. We're not going to stop trade. America's a trading nation, and the world's better for trade, and we want to have good partners. But it's time for us to stand up for you, and we're not going to allow a single job to be lost by a cheating trading partner. We're going to fight for every job. And I think that's important. We need to, I think the traditional views like lower taxes, less regulation, the danger of debt, are still resonating out there with the voters. But when I talk to you today about two issues that I think are a little different than the Republican message over the last 30 or so years. And so I think those would say to the American people that we care about you more than we care about money. And if Tom Coburn said one time in a luncheon, if you don't worry about getting elected, you don't have any trouble getting elected. Well, he didn't have any trouble. He took all these strong men. He was overwhelmingly popular.
Senator, I'm Betsy Woodward. I'm a reporter with Slate. I'm curious what your thoughts are on what would mean for the future of the Republican Party if Jeb Bush is the nominee.
Well, I don't know where he would be as the campaign goes along. And I think he's a very talented and good person. I think his policy on immigration is an error, and I think it would deny him the opportunity to appeal to a lot of people. And there seems to be some myth that the voting population goes from conservative to liberal. And if you want to get more votes, a conservative gets more moderate, or a liberal gets more conservative. But an immigration type issue transcends party politics and liberal conservative ideology. It's really about, do you believe in law? Do you believe in fairness? Shouldn't the person who comes legally be able to get a job and not be competing against somebody who's willing to work for less who came unlawfully? So creating that, I think that has if he grasps that, I think it'll be important, but I'm a little worried right now.
Lee?
Senator, you've been one of the few people to talk about the impact of H-1B visas that affect not just, when people talk about immigration, they think it's lower income, but you've been one of the few people to come out and take a position on H-1 visas that are hurting middle income and even upper middle income people with science degrees. Can you talk about the impact of H-1B for a second?
I had this little piece I was going to read, but I read. Look, in September a year ago, companies signed a letter to Boehner and Pelosi asking for expanded worker programs. These were IT-type companies. And I used to think that the one and biggest need we had was more IT workers. I accepted the conventional wisdom that most of you have heard. This is what we found. Microsoft has laid off 18,000 workers since 2014. Hewlett-Packard, 29,000 jobs since 2012. Cisco Systems, 4,000 jobs in August of 13, an additional 8,000 in the last 2 years. United Technologies, 3,000. American Express, 5,400. Procter & Gamble, 5,700. T-Mobile, 2,500. And then Southern California Edison has just been exposed, really by Computer World and written up in the Los Angeles Times, of decimating their IT department, bringing in H-1B workers from abroad who are not supposed to be able to take those jobs if there's not a shortage, and requiring their own employees to train them. I just would say to you, who's our obligation to? I tell you what about these workers? Are they going to find a job? Are they 55 years old, computer person who's given their time to California Edison? And what are they going to do? Go on welfare, and we've got to take care of that.
Senator, to go back to the trade issue, I think through your stance on immigration, you've shown that you don't trust President Obama. Do you trust him to give him the fast track authority, the trade promotion authority, to negotiate the TPP?
I'm uneasy about that. I haven't announced a firm position on it, but I want to know a lot more than I know today before I vote for a trade promotion authority. And I do think that we've got to confront the currency question. It's a huge advantage. Numbers move dramatically when currency moves. And China has pegged its currency to ours in a way that doesn't allow it to float properly. We know that Japan and Korea have definitely taken strong actions. They say, well, you've used quantitative easing too, but in my view, if we did it, it simply just helped level the playing field a little bit and minimize the damage that we're suffering. So I do think that we need to be real careful about these trade agreements.
Frank. Senator, first of all, Frank Hefty with the Secure Freedom.
Hey,
one of the things that I know you've been leading on for a long time, and it's most appreciated, is on security, which is another of those places where I think you find that broad expanse of Americans are concerned, irrespective of their political affiliations. I don't think you mentioned the border and the importance of doing something about securing it as part of this effort. And it seems a lot of your colleagues aren't mentioning it either. And I just wondered if you wanted to.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for writing on that. Yes, I'm a little bit focused on convincing Republicans they need to talk about what the impact this has on the wages and job opportunities of Americans. We need to ask that. So I've been trying to emphasize that. But it's clear that what you're seeing in Europe is happening here, and we can do a much better job of protecting ourselves. I like also what I understand you're talking about, Frank, is the idea that we need a united vision for how we're going to confront terrorism across all aspects of our government, not just the military, but which is important, but the whole aspect of intelligence, ideology, confronting their propaganda and their false statements. All of this is what we ought to be doing, and that would, I believe, you're on the right track.
Senator, in light of the depressing votes in the Senate this morning, how can we help you stop President Obama's illegal, unconstitutional amnesties?
Well, You have been a big help. All right. I believed, and I failed to prevail in this argument, that I believe the president's overreach was so significant and so against the popular will of the people, so illegal and unconstitutional, so even the most dramatic yet advance of his executive orders beyond law, that if we stood up and fought on this, we would win. I still remain convinced, had we said before he issued those orders, we will never fund this. You will not get away with this. We voted on it in the House. It was not passed. You cannot do it on your own. I don't believe he would have done it. But the Democrats began to sense weakness and division on our side. And then we started having some of our members say, oh, you know, if we pass this, he'll attack us and we always lose. Have you heard him say that? You know, just hopeless. Oh, Lord, it's high on our desk. President Obama with the lowest poll ratings ever is going to attack us. I mean, give me a break. So we should have been bold and correct. One senior member of the Republican conference has been well respected by everybody. Said, you know, I think we're going to have to fight him sooner or later. So Schumer said this morning to the world what I said to the Republican conference 2 days ago. What are we going to do on the debt ceiling? Are we going to fold up on that too? Are we just going to raise the debt ceiling and he's going to attack us? And we're going to say, oh, he'll attack us if we demand any reform of spending before we raise the debt ceiling. Give me a break.
I was wondering if you obviously timed your speech to pretty much coalesce with Governor Bush. Do you have a message for Governor Bush?
No, I didn't. I got to tell you, I didn't know till got here that we have a conflict, which is a little bit embarrassing to me, but it's a free country. I was invited to come, and I was honored to be here to share my thoughts.
No message for Governor Bush.
Senator, you wrote a handbook for immigration reform for Congress. Have the candidates, the prospective candidates for president, asked you for a copy of that?
Yes, it's gotten a lot of attention. I think a couple more have. Stephen Miller's here, right here. Y'all know Stephen Miller? Hold your hand up. This is one of the great communication warriors in all time, and Garrett March is an assistant, and they're just great. So we got that out. We have had calls about it. Stephen was telling me about talking to I think I can quote you on that. Talking to somebody at the campaign, explaining the report and what was in it. And he asked the person, the campaign person, not the candidate, how would you explain the difference between your position and Governor Bush's position? And they couldn't answer. The reason is, it is, those of you who've studied the immigration issue, you know you have to understand a lot about it before you can talk about it articulately and compassionately. Like, I don't want to stop immigration. I'd like to have a system like Canada that has a point system. People who have greater abilities and talents and jobs that we need get more points. And those who are educated, those who speak English get some more points, and those who don't. All that kind of thing I'm all for. But it just evidences that it takes some time for a candidate, for a Senate or Congress or the presidency to really grasp the overall issues involved in immigration. And I think this time it's important that our candidates do and be able to explain it effectively, whoever they are.
Makes the mainstream get so nervous. It's time for purpose, for news to serve us, not with propaganda they use to hurt us.